Hey everybody, how's it going out there? My name is Daniel, and I'm so glad you're here for the next episode of Living the Creative Act. We're up to episode 19, and it's reading pages 169 to 174, of course, of The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. We do this every Sunday at 2 p.m. And I prepared a little bit of a discussion question to think about. Share a story where you rushed and liked the result. With rushed meaning you didn't fulfill your idea due to time, budget, skill, or something else. And I'll share some examples from my own travels at the discussion portion. So of course we'll do the reading, discuss it a little bit, see what chat has to say, and take it from there. So with that all said, let's hop into the reading. Momentum from The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. When treated like the earlier phases, with no boundaries or time constraints, the craft phase may extend longer than necessary. Once enough data is collected and the vision is clear, it can be helpful to set deadlines for completion. The options are no longer unlimited. The process is less open-ended. There may not be a clear finish line in sight, but the core elements are there. Imagine you have a script that has been translated to a storyboard. Going from storyboard to finished film is somewhat of a mechanical process. There is art and inspiration involved, and there are a million choices to be made. But the path ahead is clear. Our creative task now has narrower parameters. If you're pleased with the blueprint, it could be constructed many different ways. As long as we continue referring back to make sure the developed project is as good as the original plan. There could be several different versions that all ring true. The power is held in the underlying structure. If the project were a building, we're picking which materials to clad it in and what type of windows to install. You may have a preference, but the building will maintain its integrity. The details matter, but they aren't likely to sink the enterprise. In the craft phase, deadlines are suggested completion dates rather than set in stone. There is still an element of surprise and exploration throughout our execution, and it's possible to find ourselves at any moment back in the experimentation phase. While crafting, an artist may succumb to the outside pressure to set a fixed release date for their project. Preparations are made, outsiders are notified, then sometimes, as we work diligently toward the final stage, an entirely new and preferable direction might appear. But the artist is left without the time to pursue it, and this leads to a compromised result. The artist's goal is not merely to produce, but to make the finest work they are capable of. The business thinks in terms of quarterly earnings and production schedules. The artist thinks in terms of timeless excellence. While crafting, make deadlines for your own motivation, not necessarily to be shared with others unless it helps with accountability. Once the craft phase is nearing an end, we might start thinking in terms of fixed deadlines. Crafting contains a paradox. To create our best work, we are patient and avoid rushing the process, while at the same time we work quickly without delay. By remaining too long in this phase, many pitfalls may arise. One is disconnection. If an artist is creating a beautiful work and keeps endlessly crafting it beyond the need, sometimes they suddenly want to start all over. This can be because they have changed, or the times have changed. Art is a reflection of the artist's inner and outer world during the period of creation. Extending the period complicates the artist's ability to capture a state of being. The result can be a loss of connection and enthusiasm for the work over time. Another challenge we might call demoitis. Demoitis happens when the artist has clung too tightly for too long to their first draft. The danger of living with an unfinished project for too long is that more often an artist is exposed to a particular draft of a work, the more final that form can become in their mind. A musician might record a demo of a song very quickly. They could listen to it thousands of times and imagine developing it to all it can be. Yet when it comes time to actually make the best version of the song, the demo may be so ingrained in their head that any changes to it seem blasphemous. When we become overly attached to a premature version of the work, we do a disservice to the project's potential. To avoid demoitis, there is a simple technique. Unless actively working to make something better, avoid listening to it, reading it, playing it, looking at it, or showing it to friends. Work as far forward as you can while crafting, and then step away. Without repetitively consuming the unfinished work. By not accepting the work in progress as the standard version, we leave room for growth, change, and development to continue. Keep in mind that it's also possible for something great to be made very quickly. An artist might spend 5 minutes sketching an idea for a project and think very little of it. They might sense the seed of something great and then spend hours or years trying to develop it into something more. But it is possible that the initial sketch or demo, born in all of 5 minutes, was actually the best version, the seed's purest expression. We may not realize this until after embellishing it or stepping away from it for a while. Another impediment some come across is that their vision for the work exceeds their ability to manifest it. They can hear the drum line, but the rhythm is more complex than their ability to play. They can picture the dance, but their body can't perform the moves gracefully enough. It might seem as though the next step is an impossible leap. In these moments, it's easy to feel discouraged. We mistake the fantasy version of the work in our minds for the actual work has the possibility to become. There may indeed be times when our mental conception of a piece translates almost directly into the physical realm. At other times, it's an unrealistic, idealized version. And sometimes, our vision for the work is a goal to work toward. And in the process, we come to learn we'll reach a new and unexpected destination. Falling short of grander visions might actually put the work exactly where it wants to be. Do not let the scale of your imagination get in the way of executing a more practical version of your project. We may come to realize that this version is better than the initial seemingly impossible vision. And in the break between sections, thanks so much for the 3 months subscribe, BitSpectre. Thanks so much for stopping by, and your support feels so good. Continuing on with the reading. When you're on a roll in the craft phase, Work toward a first draft. Maintain the momentum. If you reach a section of the work that gives you trouble, instead of letting this blockage stop you, work around it. Although your instinct may be to create sequentially, bypass the section where you're stuck. Complete the other parts, then come back to it. Sometimes solutions to these difficult pieces will reveal themselves once the overall context has emerged. A bridge is easier to build when it's clear what's on either side of it. Another benefit is that if you are stuck at a section in the middle, it may feel overwhelming to know you're only halfway through the work. If you finish the rest of the draft and return to the portion you skipped, it feels more easily achievable, or there's only 5 or 10% of a project left to complete. With the end in sight, it's easier to feel motivated to finish. If you're holding a center puzzle piece in your hand and staring at an empty tabletop, it's difficult to determine where to place it. If all the puzzle is complete except for that one piece, then you know exactly where it goes. The same is generally true of art. The more of the work you can see, the easier it becomes to gracefully place the final details clearly. Where they belong. Yeah, this was a really fun chapter. In the beginning, he kind of talks about how there's sort of a timeless, artists want timeless excellence, and business wants something to sell as soon as possible. And I was kind of expecting him to take the artist side here, which he doesn't like not take that side. But I guess he also gives some reasons like to rush, and that really surprised me and kind of changed my my opinion on things. But as I thought about it, of course, it kind of confirmed some things. And it looks like he gives 3 reasons to hurry. He talks about a skill gap, like the example of the drum line that you think of in your head and you can't quite play it. He says, take that as like a blocker. Like, don't go down that road. If you can't play the drum line that you thought up in your head, think up of a different one for the song that you're working on so that you have something that's now. Because if you practice 3 months or a year to get your skills up, then that's a different moment. That's okay. That's just a different moment. And I guess the reason for rushing, he's saying, is to capture the moment, which I guess was, this second reason. You want to keep the moment. If I've certainly had ideas where I write them down and I'm so excited, and then when I go to work on them, it's been a month or a year later. I've just had other ideas in between that I'm more excited about. And this is perhaps a reason to post stuff to TikTok. There's TikToks that I love that just would not work as feature films, that are perfect as TikToks, something quick that someone put together, and it's beautiful. There are certain feature length films that probably could have just been a 2-minute TikTok, but that's a different story. And I guess this also kind of begs the question of like, is it better for something to exist or to not exist? Like, if I have a good idea and I don't have enough time to fully realize it before the moment passes, Is it better to do nothing, or is it better to do like a quick version, like a TikTok version? And I think kind of going back to 2 weeks ago, the try everything chapter, give both a try and see what works for you. He gives a third reason that you might want to hurry through something, and that, of course, is the good old budget gap. I guess time and money budget, both. If I can't do the 2-year version, if I can't do the 1-year version, maybe do the 30-second version just so that it's out there. Because I guess he says in I think it was the previous chapter in crafting, he's saying that you only grow when you complete something. And I'm not sure exactly how true that is. Because I've certainly grown through things that I haven't completed. I've completed portions of things. But you certainly want to complete things so you can have the benefit of listening to the thing that you made, or using the features of the app you made, or you know what I mean. And I think this has also been said in other ways of like, use what you have. You don't need $1,000 mic to start recording your voice. You don't need $1,000 webcam to start streaming. I'm still using my MacBook webcam. At some point I'll upgrade, but I'm not there yet. Because, and I think TikTok really shows this, is that the emotion that you're sharing, the moment that you're sharing, is more important than the fidelity of sharing it, like the quality of the video or the audio. You can look at, tap dance. They they were just using the they were just using the soles of their feet to make sound. And it's still an art form that's enjoyed to this day. Yeah, we do got a little bit of spam in the chat. I'm not sure how to cancel it. But moving on. Yeah, he talks about that there's this paradox when creating art. Want to be patient and avoid rushing the process, and at the same time work quickly without delay. I find it interesting that he calls this a paradox instead of what he said 2 weeks ago in Try Everything. Sometimes like try just doing 30-second versions of everything, and other times try doing the 2-year version of something. But I guess he's saying that it's kind of both, both at the same time. So I guess, for example, with the seed and crafting, he's taking, for seeds, he's saying you can't force the idea to happen. You can only kind of observe what you observe. And then once you have the seed, once you have the idea, execute it as fast as possible, or else it's gone. The moment's passed. Okay, let's head back to the discussion question. Oh, I should have put the discussion question slide here, huh? Well, I guess here it is. Share a story where you rushed and liked the result. with rushed meaning you didn't fulfill your idea due to time, budget, skill, or something else. And I'll go first. The slides for last week. Um, this was definitely something that I rushed due to time constraints because I had the idea about a half hour before the show started that I wanted to have discussion slides instead of just the book text. And as a developer, I wanted to have a proper model for the slides so I could reuse it. But I didn't have time for thinking through that because the show was about to start. So I kind of hard coded in the slides for the discussion last week. So basically, the slides for every episode was going to have those same slides. And it it worked out. I had slides for the show last week. And then right after the show, I refactored the code so that I could have separate discussion slides from the main slides, and they would be different for each time. My favorite song I ever recorded was recorded on a tape deck. It wasn't an 8-track or anything. It was just a regular tape deck that I kept recording over. And I used a really old synthesizer. It was not a fancy one at all. It was slightly better than a cheap Casio. It might have been a cheap Roland or something. I don't even remember the brand name. And and an acoustic electric guitar. Yeah, the sound quality is so bad, but it really captured exactly what I wanted to capture. Now I could have waited to have a budget. I could have waited to have a real studio. And later when I did have like better equipment, I tried to re-record that song and I couldn't match the feeling that I captured in that recording, for better or worse. As Bit Spectre in the chat says, sometimes cheap adds character. Yeah, 100%. And this show, this show sometimes feels rushed to me. I'm doing what I can to optimize the time that I put into prepping for this show. But still, it feels like each episode is about to start and I'm still I'm still prepping a little bit. And I hope that the each show gets better. That is my intention. And I think I can see my progress. But still, I I I'm kind of live practicing making the show as it's happening. I am definitely not a podcast pro at all. But here I am making each show better than the last, incrementally, slowly. Like this week we have the discussion question at the beginning. We've got the label at the bottom here saying the discussion slide. And then let's see, what's this last slide going to be? Yeah, so I feel like him kind of saying like rushing is sometimes okay kind of implies that something existing is better than not existing. And I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not. Are there some things that are better if they had never existed because they were rushed out? Let's see, what are some more high profile examples? So I guess like Cyberpunk was a video game that launched with a bunch of bugs. Diablo 4 launched with, I think it was relatively bug free. Like the campaign was fine, but the end game was just not thought out. They're still kind of live creating it. Would it be better for them to have waited a little bit longer? Or was it okay to launch in the state that they launched? But I mean, like, Diablo 4 is going to come out at some point, no matter what, I would like to say. So I guess it's also kind of questioning, like, smaller ideas. BitSpectre says, D4 was just missing content. Worst $70 I ever spent. I don't regret the $70. But I'm super glad I did not do any of the deluxe features for that game. I mean, 70 does hurt a little bit. I do feel like I got $40 of value out of it. But I mean, there's just other games that I've spent way cheaper for that I've gotten way more value out of. I think if you know that I love that Beaver game, Timberborn. I think I paid $25 for it on Steam, and I have well over 1,000 hours played on it by now. Because how much was Diablo 3? Diablo 3, I certainly got my money's worth and then some, and I bought all the expansions. And Diablo 3 is still there if I want to play it. I haven't, though. I've been doing all kinds of other things. BitSpectre says, I've bought everything Diablo before. Yeah, I tried like 2 minutes of Diablo Immortal, but I didn't really like that game. It didn't really match up to what I wanted from a Diablo game. Diablo games are interesting, right? There's certainly a lot of fun to be had, but at other times it can feel like a way to spend time. It can feel like I put in time to grind to get better gear, and is that worth it? I mean, if I had fun, I think it is. Oh, Diablo 3 launch also had problems, though. I remember waking up, I think it was at like 4 a.m., and I couldn't log in at all. So I went to bed at 5:30 a.m. I waited an hour and a half. BitSpectre says, Immortal was okay as a free game. Definitely wasn't a full game. Yeah, so is it better for these things to exist or to not exist? Is it better to have a rushed out version? I honestly don't know. There's certainly ideas that I've had that would have been nice if there was something to show for it. I just know that even even if I did that for half of my ideas, there would still be even more ideas that have sort of floated by down the river. Because in some respects, I feel like thinking the idea is sometimes enough, and I'm already ready to move on to the idea like beyond it. BitSpectre says, I prefer more polished, delayed. Diablo 1 and 2 were phenomenal games and they weren't rushed. Yeah, I think Blizzard has like a reputation of putting out polished stuff. So when it doesn't happen, it's kind of a surprise. But even Diablo 3 changed so much over the course of its life. You know, I guess we would say like up until Diablo 4 launched. So Timberborn is an early access, a kind of officially in early access. It's not officially launched yet, but there's tons of content in there, and I'm certainly glad that they have this early access because I've had so much fun with that game. BitSpectre says they did before they sold to EA and now Microsoft. Let's see. Have I ever made something that I really liked, like really fast time wise? I know that I really like being able to polish something, like go back over and over again. Um, but I also like like improv where you have basically a radio's amount of pause to think of something and say it. And that's really fun too. As far as what stuff that I like that I make. BitSpectre says, I find early access to be double-edged sword. Some use it to get feedback and build a better release game, whereas a vast majority used it as a crush to never release the full game. Yeah, I guess so. That's kind of judging other people's work. I'm kind of curious about is there a story where uh you the listener rushed something and liked the result? I mean, though we don't have someone from Blizzard here to give their opinion on if they liked something that they rushed. I think I think everything I do, I see things that could be better next time I do it. I see things that I wish I had time to improve or money to improve. Um, like I think my next purchase needs to be lighting, better lighting. BitSpectre says co-stream with Pirate Software. I recognize that name. I kind of forget what they stream. BitSpectre says I don't have anything I've done in general, let alone rushed. Well, maybe I be so bold as to suggest rushing through something then, as an interpretation of what this chapter is suggesting. He does game dev. Used to work for Blizzard. Oh, I think I saw some stuff on YouTube by him recently. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's all the thoughts I've prepared for this section. We do this every Sunday at 2 p.m. NYC time, and I'm so glad you all are here. If you've made it this far, I am trying to grow the follower count, and the likes and all that are very encouraging.